If you have already watched this introductory information, you can skip ahead no more than 9 minutes. Hello, welcome. I am predicting that famous singer-songwriter Paul Simon of Simon and Garfunkel will die on August 12th, 2025. This time-stamped email proves that this prediction that Paul Simon will die on August 1st, 2025 has been known since November 9th. We can see here the timestamp November 9th, 2024. On November 8th, 2024, we received the relevant prophetic signs related to Paul Simon. And as I wrote right here, God was pointing to November 8th ahead of time because Simon's death will point to Revelation chapter 8, verse 1. And this is the reason why Paul Simon will die on August 1st, 2025. In short, the date 8:1 and 11:8 hint at Revelation 8:1 in the Bible, which describes a period of silence that was observed in heaven. Paul Simon's first hit was Sound of Silence. As I wrote right here, it is exactly 38 weeks between November 8th and August 1st, 2025, and Paul Simon is predicted to die at the age of 83, for which 38 weeks hints at. All right, the analysis that God was pointing to August 1st was 100% correct. However, Paul Simon did not die on August 1st. Instead, God provided clear and relevant signs related to Paul Simon, which revealed adding 11 more days, including the sale of the storied mansion in Los Angeles for $110 million. 110 hints at the number 11, and Paul Simon is associated with mansion symbolism in God's signs, primarily because, for example, his biggest solo album is Graceland, and the song Graceland is about him traveling to Elvis Presley's mansion. 11 days after August 1st, which was again known since November of 2024, will be August 12th, the date it is predicted now that Paul Simon will die. And so, in other words, if you are reasonable, it is clear that essentially I predicted Paul Simon's death back on November 9th, 2024. Yes, it wasn't August 1st, but like I just said or explained, and it'll be explained much more in detail in other videos, 11 days was revealed through the prophetic signs on August 1st, which gets us to August 12th. And so in other words, again, back in November 9th, 2024, I predicted that Paul Simon would die on August 12th. If you have the eyes to see that. It's really quite simple and clear. I predicted August 1st, but again, it revealed 11 days to August 12th. And so essentially, back on November 9th, I predicted that Paul Simon would die on August 12th. A dirty bomb is a conventional explosive that uses radioactive material. I am predicting that 3 dirty bombs will explode in New York City, in Times Square, Penn Station, and Grand Central Station. There will then be a massive evacuation from Manhattan Island. I am predicting that these 3 dirty bombs will explode on either August 30th or September 4th. I am also predicting that a dirty bomb will explode in the port of Los Angeles on September 4th. I am predicting that Tehran, Iran, will be nuked by the US or possibly Israel on September 7th, 2025. This will obviously be in response to the dirty bombs that are predicted to explode in New York City. I am predicting that Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom will die in a plane crash in St. Louis as they are traveling from Washington, D.C. to Los Angeles in Busch Stadium in St. Louis on August 2nd, 2028. This will be during the predicted presidential campaign of Gavin Newsom. As a result of Gavin Newsom's death, Michelle Obama will become the Democrat Party's presidential nomination. Michelle Obama will, quote unquote, win the election over J.D. Vance, on November 7th, 2028, and will become the president on January 20th, 2029. Donald Trump is predicted to run as J.D. Vance's vice president. This scheme to overcome the 22nd Amendment will backfire and inspire Michelle Obama and Barack Obama to run on the ticket with Barack Obama as Michelle Obama's vice president. She will then step down and Barack Obama will become the president again. It is predicted that there will be a massive Mary apparition on the beach in Rio, Brazil on April 24th, 2029. It is now recognized that there will be 2 massive Mary apparitions on the beach in Rio. The first of the 2 is predicted to be on March 22nd, 2029. These predicted Mary apparitions will not be secretive. They will be mainstream, worldwide news. Like all Mary apparitions in history, including at Lourdes, Guadalupe, and Fatima, this Mary apparition will be a demon pretending to be Mary. It is predicted that on April 26th, 2029, the key will open the bottomless pit and fallen angels will cross over into the earthly realm. April 26th, 2029 will be a symbolic beginning to the 5th trumpet judgment that is described in Revelation chapter 9, when the demonic realm collides with the earthly realm. April 26th, 2029 will be a symbolic beginning to demons pretending to be aliens. The demons pretending to be aliens will claim to be here to help us with our nuclear weapons. It is predicted that Pope Francis will be resurrected from the grave on April 26th, 2029, and it is possible that on this day, Pope Francis will announce that aliens have arrived and have made him the ambassador for the world. This will immediately give Pope Francis, the Antichrist, supreme power over governments of the world. April 26th, 2029 will be a symbolic beginning to a zombie pandemic and the masses becoming demonically possessed that will be facilitated through the thing, which is the mark of the Antichrist and 5G frequencies. April 26th, 2029 will be a symbolic beginning to the coming genocide politicide in America. The resurrection rapture event will occur on Pentecost on May 27th, 2029. On September 11th, 2029, there will be a catastrophic asteroid hit of Earth in the Indian Ocean. The greatest seismic effect of this will be felt on the other side of the globe, which is North America, and this will trigger an eruption of Yellowstone volcano and will cause the volcano in the Canary Islands to collapse into the Atlantic Ocean and send a mega tsunami towards the East Coast. It will also trigger the collapse of the Hoover Dam, which will cause a water panic in California, and many other devastating earthquakes. The day of the Lord, the second coming of Lord Jesus Christ, Judgment Day, will be at the end of 2031. The date that this video is posted proves that these predictions are being made ahead of time, as do these time-stamped emails and forensic notes PDF documents. If you are skeptical for some reason, please email me and I will forward these to you. All right, welcome. This video is predicting that the S&P 500 stock market index will peak on August 12th, 2025. This is a typo. Well, not a typo, sorry. This is an email that was written prior to August 1st and August 4th. I'll explain in a second. But the analysis in this email is correct, and God was pointing to these dates, and I'll explain. It wasn't the peak, and I'll explain. It'll make sense. Just give me a minute here. But the prediction is that the S&P 500 stock market index will peak on August 12th, 2025, at the 6,400 level. All right? And it hasn't closed yet above the 6,400 level. It may, in fact, close above the 6,400 level tomorrow on August 12th. The prediction then is for this stock market to have its biggest crash in US history. And also, on August 12th, it is predicted that famous singer-songwriter Paul Simon will die. Paul Simon from Simon and Garfunkel. And everything is related here, because God is pointing to, or using Paul Simon to point to Revelation 8:1, which is the description in the Bible of a period of silence that was observed in heaven. Paul Simon's first big hit that launched his career was Sound of Silence. And that's why God used this date 8:1. On this date, we received what was expected, which was clear and relevant signs related to Paul Simon, which are explained in other videos. And that, or these signs on this date, revealed adding 11 days. The signs on this date also revealed adding 7 plus 4 days. But that's explained in another video. Okay, so also the reason for the connection to Paul Simon and this 6,400 level in the S&P 500, again, it is predicted that Paul Simon will die tomorrow on August 12th. And also the stock market will crash and after having reached the 6,400 level. The song Sound of Silence, the big song that God is pointing to, Paul Simon's big first hit, was released, the original version, in 1964. And the reason for 64 is that it is 4 times 4 times 4. And God is using the number 4 in association with Paul Simon in his prophetic signs. And there's a few reasons for that. First, the Antichrist is the 44th president, who turned 64 on this date, August 4th. That's why this date is here in this title of this email. So the 44th president had his 4 times 4 times 4th birthday on this day. The day it is predicted that Paul Simon will die and the S&P 500 will begin crashing after having reached the 6,400 level will be 4 plus 4 days after the 44th president's 4 times 4 times 4th birthday. 4 plus 4 days hints at the 44th president. It's 2 4s. Another reason why God is associating, I didn't even explain the first reason yet. So the number 4 is associated with Paul Simon because of one of the trumpet judgments that follows the period of silence in heaven in the book of Revelation. And that particular trumpet involves a key that opens a door to the bottomless pit. Now, a key is also in music, especially music composition, which Paul Simon is famous for. In fact, he's considered the GOAT, or greatest of all time, of popular music composition and songwriting. One of the GOATs, anyway. And God is using GOATs for signs. God uses extremes and records, etc., for signs in general. Well, anyway, this particular trumpet judgment that involves a door is why the number 4, because the 4th letter in the Hebrew alphabet is a symbol for a door. And from this word for this letter, dalat, is how we get delta, the 4th letter of the Greek alphabet. And from that, we get the word door in English. And delta is interesting too, because the first line of Paul Simon's song Graceland, which was the title also of his best-selling solo album, was the Mississippi Delta was shining like a national guitar. Well, the demons that will emerge from the bottomless pit, that will go through the door, and I should say this too, the door symbolism is the same as bridge symbolism in God's signs. And Simon's biggest hit was Bridge Over Troubled Water. It was from that's the name actually also of his 5th album with Simon and Garfunkel. And this is the 5th trumpet of the 7 trumpets that we're talking about. And also in that trumpet judgment, the people that are persecuted, tortured, tormented by the demons, it says that this torture will last for 5 months. But this torture is alluding to the demonic possession of those who have taken the mark of the Antichrist, which will be triggered through 5G frequencies. And this is because, as Paul said, that Satan is the prince of the power of the air. And music is frequencies, which is why God is also another reason why God is using Paul Simon. The shining, the Mississippi Delta was shining like a national guitar, is because Paul Simon infamously broke up with his girlfriend, Shelley Duvall, at the airport, as in portal, as in door, before she flew to the UK to film the movie The Shining, which is about demonic possession of a large hotel and demonic possession of people. And this hotel is symbolism for a mansion in God's signs, and that's why also Paul Simon, whose best-selling album was Graceland, which is about Elvis Presley's mansion. Long story short, there's other signs to confirm this mansion theme in God's signs regarding Paul Simon. But anyway, another reason for the association of the number 4 with Paul Simon is this idiom that's repeated in the book of Amos, and I'll explain either in this video or other videos why or how God has used Paul Simon to point to the book of Amos. And this idiom is repeated in the first chapter of the book of Amos, which has 15 verses, which is why Paul Simon's vision, or rather, prophetic dream, in which he was instructed by a voice to make his new album, 7 Psalms, which its theme is about crossing over into the afterlife. That dream occurred on the date 115 because of Amos chapter 1 with its 15 verses, with this idiom that repeats, that's Hebrew, which is for 3 transgressions and for 4. The idiom means the tolerable limit of transgressions has been exceeded, and now judgment and destruction is unavoidable. For 3 transgressions and for 4. This is also why Simon Garfunkel's first album was named Wednesday Morning 3 a.m. This is the album that contains the original Sound of Silence. Wednesday is the 4th day of the week, and so Wednesday morning 3 a.m. gives us a 3 and a 4, as in for 3 transgressions and for 4. And so this is a little bit of a background here as to why the number 4, and 64 is 4 times 4 times 4. And God repeats a number 3 times for emphasis of its symbolic meaning. Okay, and so Paul Simon, again, Sound of Silence was released in 64 on the Wednesday Morning 3 a.m. album. And the S&P is predicted to peak, or at least crash, on the day it's predicted, or begin crashing, I should say, or begin its decline on the day it's predicted that Paul Simon will die. Or maybe the day after, I don't know. Maybe, just hypothetically, one scenario could be that the S&P 500 closes above the 6,400 level on August 12th, the day Paul Simon dies, who had a hit that was released in 64, Sound of Silence, and then begins its decline the following day, and then over the next months begins its biggest crash in U.S. history. Or, it could begin declining tomorrow because it has already surpassed the 6,400 level intraday. It hasn't closed above the 6,400 level, but it has gone above the 6,400 level on an intraday basis. And so I'm not quite sure what exactly is going to transpire regarding the stock market. Like I said, either it's going to start declining tomorrow on the day Paul Simon's predicted to die, or maybe it closes above August 12th tomorrow, and then the next day begins its decline. Either way, it will hint at 64 because it briefly surpassed 6,400 level already, okay, including August 11th. So that could, in fact, be a prelude to pointing to tomorrow and the predicted death of Paul Simon, whose song Sound of Silence was released in 64. One interesting thing that might confirm that is that on August 11th, the Dow Jones Index closed at 44,044 points. That's amazing, given what we're talking about here. And so on that day, the S&P went above 6,400 again. It's only done it 3 days. The other days were July 29th and 31st, if I recall. And those are also in time. The timing of those is also in conjunction with these dates here, like I was talking about. But anyway, it could be that the S&P 500 exceeded the 6,400 level briefly on the day that the Dow closed above or at 44,044 in order to point to the following day and the death of Simon, whose song Sound of Silence was released in 64. We'll see what happens. But anyway, we're predicting this timing right now for the stock market to begin its decline and its biggest crash in history. So, months from now, you can come back to this video and recognize that this was predicted ahead of time, this biggest crash in history. Other people are expecting a crash, but the difference here is I'm giving a specific time and date and level, which makes it a prediction. Most people don't expect a crash. Some people do expect a crash, and even a fewer expect the biggest crash in history, but they're not talking about the specific timing and level, which is what's going on in this video. So this is a massive prediction if it comes to pass. It simply might not be recognized for a couple of months though. Okay, now going forward in this video, I'm going to read these paragraphs, which I wrote like I show here in July. Again, it'll talk about August 1st and August 4th, okay? And just bear with it, be patient. I've explained now what was going on, and now we're talking about August 12th. And then I'll come back after these paragraphs are explained, and I'll explain some more interesting information regarding what's going on here with this prediction for the stock market and August 12th. All right, welcome. This video is documenting this prediction that the US stock market will make its all-time peak high on August 1st or August 4th, 2025, and then begin its biggest crash in history, never to again exceed the level it will reach on August 1st or August 4th. And so to be clear, if you're not really into thinking conceptually about the stock market, this is a fantastic prediction. You could say the person that's not so knowledgeable will say, well, the market's due for a crash or something like that. Well, no, this is precise. Again, I'm predicting the precise date that the market will make its all-time high. So regardless of whether or not someone's predicting a crash, and not only am I predicting a crash, I'm predicting the biggest crash in history. That's a prediction in itself. There are very few people that are expecting the biggest crash in history. There are a number of people that are, though. But I'm also predicting the precise date of the peak. All right. Not only that, though, as I'll explain, I'm predicting the precise level, and that's the most important part of this prediction. I should have put it in the title here, but I'm predicting the S&P 500 stock market index will peak at the 6,400 level. It will reach above the 6,400 level, which it hasn't done yet. And this will be in conjunction with the 64th birthday of the 44th president. And 64 is 4 times 4 times 4. And this peak at the 6,400 level in conjunction with the 64th birthday of the Antichrist will also be in conjunction with the predicted death of Paul Simon on August 1st. And the reason why Paul Simon is predicted to die on August 1st is that his death will point to, on the date 8-1, will point to Revelation 8-1, in which a period of silence was observed in heaven. Simon's first big hit that launched his career was Sound of Silence. The song Sound of Silence, the acoustic original version, was released on the album, his first album, Simon and Garfunkel's first album, and that album was released in 1964, as in apostrophe 64. And again, that's when it's predicted that the stock market will peak at the 6,400 level. Now, this prediction, as you can see in this timestamped email, was made 2 hours ago. It's when I wrote this email that I'm about to read that explains more details here. But we can also see in here that this date is July 22nd. So this is before August 1st. If you are skeptical for some strange reason, please email me and I'll forward this to you. And also the post date that this video is posted on the media platform that you are watching this video on also proves that this prediction is being made ahead of time. Okay, so let's begin with what I wrote here. Paul Simon is predicted to die on the date 8/1 because it will point to Revelation 8:1. Simon and Garfunkel's first hit was Sound of Silence. This period of silence that's observed in heaven in Revelation 8:1 precedes the 7 trumpets of judgment and destruction that follow the period of silence in the chapter, in the prophecy. 7 is the 4th prime number. The original acoustic version of Sound of Silence is on Simon and Garfunkel's first album, Wednesday Morning, 3 a.m., which was released in 1964. 64 hints at 64, which is 4 times 4 times 4. Simon is a music composer, and compositions of music rely on the music key. Simon was born in 41, and the word key is equal to 41 in simple English gematria, A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3. Bridge Over Troubled Water, Simon's 5th album, is symbolic of door. In God's signs, bridge is the same symbolism as door, and the number 4 is associated with the number with the door in God's signs, because the 4th letter of the Hebrew alphabet is a symbol for a door. And the word door in English is rooted in the word for the 4th letter of the Hebrew alphabet. It comes from delta, the 4th letter of the Greek alphabet, and that comes from dalat, the 4th letter of the Hebrew alphabet. So that's why in God's signs, the number 4 is associated with Paul Simon and this door symbolism, and it is a key that opens the door to the bottomless pit in the 5th trumpet judgment, which is why Paul Simon's Bridge Over Troubled Water, because the demons will cross a bridge out of the bottomless pit, was his 5th album, 5th trumpet judgment. Simon is predicted to die exactly 115 weeks after the release of the album 7 Psalms, which is part of the confirmation for, or the hinting at, parallel with the 7 trumpets. Now, 115 weeks points to the book of Amos in the Bible, chapter 1, and its 15 verses. Furthermore, Paul Simon's predicted to die 115 weeks after the 7 Psalms album was released. The 7 Psalms album was released 4 years, 4 months, and 4 days after the prophetic dream Simon received, in which a voice instructed him to make the album and name it 7 Psalms. In interviews in his studio, the interviewer is showed the framed piece of paper on his wall on which he wrote down notes after the dream, and the dream is dated for January 15th, the date 115. So the dream on 115 is 4 years, 4 months, and 4 days, as in a door, before the release of the album 7 Psalms, which is in turn exactly 115 weeks. That's because of Amos chapter 1, verse 15. Amos chapter 1 with its total of 15 verses, as in the date 115, January 15th, the date of the dream. Okay, and in this chapter is repeated a Hebrew idiom, quote, for 3 transgressions and for 4, unquote. The reason for this, the meaning of this idiom means that the tolerable limit of sin has been exceeded and judgment is unavoidable. So this is the other main reason why Simon is associated with the number 4 in God's signs. Long story short, as to how this was figured out, that God is using Simon to point to Amos chapter 1, but that's explained in another video. But through the chapter, we get the number 4, and it has to do with judgment, as does Paul Simon's Sound of Silence, pointing to Revelation 8:1, because it precedes the 7 trumpets of judgment. By the way, Simon has a big hit late in the evening that's known for heavily using trumpets. Now, in other words, the number 4 is associated with Simon and God in God's signs. Before I read that, one other thing. This for 3 transgressions and for 4, this is astounding because of the first album that contains Sound of Silence. The name of Simon and Garfunkel's first album is Wednesday Morning, 3 a.m. Wednesday is the 4th day of the week. So we have this 3 and 4 in the title of the first album, which is a confirmation that God is using Simon to point to this chapter and this idiom for 3 transgressions and for 4. It's just amazing. So in other words, the number 4 is associated with Simon and God's signs, and the song Sound of Silence was released in the year 4 times 4 times 4, as in 1964. Simon is predicted to die on 8/1 because of his song Sound of Silence that was released in the year 4 times 4 times 4. Okay? Now, the 500th word in Strong's Greek Concordance is G500, and it is the word that means Antichrist. The 44th president is the Antichrist, and the 44th president's 4 times 4 times 4th birthday will be on Monday, August 4th, 2025. The S&P 500, as in Antichrist, G500, stock market index, is predicted to make an all-time peak above the 6,400 level in conjunction with the 44th president's 64th birthday. This peak at 6,400, 4 times 4 times 400 level, will also be in conjunction with the predicted death of Simon on Friday, August 1st, 2025. And Simon is predicted to die on this date because of his song that was released in 64. Okay, so did you get that? Simon is going to die because of the song on August 1st, because of the song that was released in 64. And that will be in conjunction with the stock market reaching, and it hasn't reached there yet, the 6,400 level and then peaking on that same day. And this will be in conjunction with the Antichrist's 64th birthday, which will be on the Monday. The stock market will be closed on the Saturday and Sunday. I'm anticipating the likely scenario of it peaking on the Friday, the 1st, the day that Simon's predicted to die because of the song that's released in 64. And then the stock market, after reaching 6,400 on that day, will then start crashing on the Monday because of the Antichrist's 64th birthday. And that's all because 64 is 4 times 4 times 4. So as I wrote right here, one likely scenario is the S&P 500 will make its all-time peak high above the 6,400 level on Friday, and then on Monday, the 44th president's 64th birthday, it will begin its decline from this peak level and begin the biggest stock market crash in history. That's what makes it a prediction. I'm predicting the precise date, the precise level, but I'm also predicting that it's not just a decline, it's the biggest stock market crash in history, which will take some time to happen. It won't happen in one day. And so this prediction, this aspect of the prediction might not be recognized to be accurate until many months from now. The biggest crash in history will be judgment. The period of silence in heaven that is observed in Revelation 8:1 is followed by the 4th prime number of trumpets of judgment. In other words, 7 trumpets. Okay, here again is what I wrote on August 11th. Okay, timestamp proves this prediction is being made ahead of time. The analysis that is pointing to the 6,400 level for the peak of the S&P 500 index is still believed to be correct. The index still has not closed above 6,400 level. On the different days the index has crossed, the 6,400 level, but not closed above let me read that again. On different days, the index has crossed the 6,400 level, but it has not closed above the 6,400 level. It still may not ever close above 6,400. On the other hand, it might close above 6,400 on August 12th. and then begin its biggest crash in history. August 12th is the predicted date that Paul Simon will die. Simon's first big hit was Sound of Silence, which was originally released in '64. Okay, and on August 11th, the Dow Jones Index closed at 44,044, which is interesting given that 64 is 4 times 4 times 4. Also, August 12th will be 4 plus 4 days after the 44th president's 4 times 4 times 4th birthday. And the 44th president is the Antichrist. And so this would be a way to point to this and reveal this, another confirmation, because of course 4 plus 4 days hints at the 44th president. Yeah. Believe me, I know far better than you how the prediction made in this video was derived. And more importantly, I know far better than you why the righteous Christian God of the Bible has given me a voice through this prediction. If you are a quote-unquote Christian or Muslim, this prediction was not learned through a demon. Be warned that blaspheming the Holy Spirit is the unforgivable sin. If you are a New Ager or New Spirituality person, this prediction was not learned through somehow tapping into the supposed universal collective consciousness. If you are a conspiracy theorist, this prediction was not learned through figuring out a supposed code that the Illuminati and Satanists are using. This prediction was learned through the Bible and through watching carefully the Lord's prophetic signs, which Jesus commanded all Christians to do. Besides proving that Jesus Christ is the Lord, the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction is to prove that the controversial things that I am saying in the videos on this channel are the truth. Therefore, a wise person will want to watch all of the videos on this channel. What I will also do is create a video or two that summarizes some of the controversial things that the Lord will prove to be true when the prediction being made in this video comes to pass. I will leave links to these must-watch videos in the description box below this video. Again, the purpose of this prediction, that is from God, is to prove these things that I will talk about. And therefore, it would be foolish to not watch the videos that I will leave links for in the description box below this video. Aliens and UFOs are demons masquerading as aliens and UFOs. Most people's spiritual experiences are demonic deception, especially if they are not a true follower of Christ. In the last days, many people who claim to be a follower of Christ will have spiritual experiences that are in reality demonic. God became a man and died a horrible death at the hand of the ruler of this world, Satan, and then defeated death for you, so that you too can overcome death, which is the price that must be paid for sin. It is time to repent, which means to change one's ways and turn to God and become a disciple of Jesus. Do not listen to or follow the example of most quote-unquote Christians. Instead, follow the teachings of Jesus, which most quote-unquote Christians ignore. Like Jesus, you must surrender your life. Put nothing ahead of Jesus, your Lord. Like Jesus, you must lay down your life so that you may live. As Jesus said, one must die first, like a kernel of wheat going into the ground, in order to then grow and produce fruit. And like Jesus said, one must produce fruit, or else like a branch or a tree not producing fruit, they will be thrown into the fire. Jesus was speaking to quote-unquote Christians when he said this. One must die the self in order to be born again. And like Jesus said, one must be born again to enter the kingdom. Like Jesus, you must sacrifice your life for the sake of the coming kingdom. It means to do work that involves some form of sacrifice and risk. To have faith does not mean to intellectually agree. You need to demonstrate your faith through taking action. To have faith means to trust in God's promises. Taking action demonstrates trust and fear of the Lord. The primary reason that the wrath of God is coming upon America is quote-unquote Christians that do not get what I have just explained. The only reason a Christian is alive is in order to help other people become Christians and make it to the kingdom. Do not be deceived by those on the political left claiming to be quote-unquote Christians. There is no such thing as a Christian on today's political progressive left. Jesus said, "Do not think I have come to abolish or change any bit of the law or the prophets of the Old Testament Bible." In other words, the God of the Old Testament Bible is the exact same God of the New Testament Bible. It is essential that you learn about the God of the Bible and his ways. The God of the Old Testament Bible is looking to see who will fear him, and to fear God is not the same thing as quote-unquote revering or honoring God. Through Christ's ransom payment, a Christian is someone who has been redeemed and freed from slavery to sin and Satan. In response, a true Christian recognizes that their life in this world does not belong to them, and they become a willing slave to Jesus for the sake of the kingdom. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. And don't only put the link to this video or another video on this channel in comments sections of places you typically visit, but importantly, put the link to the video in places you never visit, where people who don't think like you visit. If you are a quote-unquote Christian, nothing in terms of an evangelism tool compares to this video with its prediction. It is a massive bag of gold. Beware of Jesus' warning through the quote-unquote Christian that did nothing with his bag of gold and was banished to hell. Also, read Ezekiel chapter 3 and 33 for this same warning. If you think you might be spending too much time watching videos instead of working and sacrificing for the kingdom through handing out flyers and potentially helping hundreds of people in the same length of time as a video, my flyer is filled with amazing information that people need to know right now, and it points people to the video channel. Now is not the time to be handing out typical evangelical tracts that are largely based in error anyway, such as, quote, Jesus loves you, unquote, for example. You can hand out the flyer on busy street corners, put them on car windshields in busy parking lots, and put them in mailboxes. Just send the file to your local print shop. You can download the file from the website. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. It is essential that everyone immediately read the homepage of my website, asteroidprediction.com. If you are watching this on the YouTube platform, please note that not all of the videos are on YouTube. You need to switch to the Odyssey.com or Rumble.com channel, and do it now in case you aren't able to later.